Hi, so I thought I'd make this little video about pannier packing and equipment and gear that I'm using. Please remember, I wouldn't call myself a professional, and I think it's purely subjective to what you take. I think it also depends on what sort of trip you're doing. I recently met a guy that was going from Moscow into Kazakhstan. He was doing a fast trek, he was staying in hotels. And all he had with him was one change of clothes and a backpack and nothing more. So this really is a video about what I chose to take more than anything through the experience of years of camping, trekking holidays, etc., backpacking and that around the world, and what I'd learned online of what other people were doing. As I said before, I'm using the panniers. I'm using the classic 4 pannier setup. Only difference is that I'm also using the rack pack 30 litre as well, which clips into the rear panniers and that, which holds my tent and everything else. So I'll go through start from the beginning and go through what I'm taking. So I'm also carrying a backpack. A lot of people wouldn't. So I got one of these backpacks, really good quality one. The reason why I'm using this backpack is this is one of the dirtier ones, German engineering, but it's got this mesh panel on the back, which means that my back stays cool in that, and relatively I don't have a problem with sweat or anything like that from it. Now the reason why I'm carrying this is really, this holds not only my lunch, it holds my passport, it holds my wallet, it holds my phone, my keys, and etc. in it. And I really like that. I really like knowing that that's attached to me all the time. So no matter what happens to the bike, or if I'm parked up somewhere, this is always on my back, and this is the thing that's the most important that stays with me. So not everybody will take a backpack. I know a lot of backpackers don't like to do that, but that's what I'm taking, and I wouldn't be without it. Next here we have the rack pack. It's a 31 litre waterproof pack. This is one I say that sits on top of the rear rack. And into this one I have my sleeping bag. Now I'm using a down sleeping bag, and I have this packed in one of these Sea to Summit event stuff sacks, which lets the air out in that. And it's really quite handy. It also just gives me that extra piece of protection knowing that my down sleeping bag is in a waterproof bag. So if for any reason that this bag does leak, I've actually know that my sleeping bag's dry. And to be honest, that's probably one piece of equipment I want to know at the end of the day that is actually dry and safe. I also got packed into there an air pillow. I started off with a hollow fibre fabric pillow, and what I discovered pretty shortly was that with not necessarily having a shower every day and sleeping on it, that it became quite, obviously smelly and that, and when I came to wash it, it didn't take long before it was really useless. But the air pillow was great because it's just made of a nylon fabric, which means I can wipe it down, and I put that inside a small pillowcase as well, meaning that I can just wash the pillowcase. So I'd recommend probably going that way. I know many people just sleep on a jumper or something like that, but I prefer to have a little pillow with me. So that's what's in there. Next in there I have my sleeping mat. I've chosen to use the Thermarest Sea Light. I actually started off with 2 mats. I started off with this foam mat, and I also started off with a Rubens Vapor air mattress. What I soon discovered that actually I like this much better. It's very quick to set up and put away. It's virtually indestructible. I can use it as a seat. It's light, and what I didn't like about having the air mattress was obvious reasons that it could get a hole and meant that I had to have a puncture repair kit and stuff just in case. But more the thing that annoyed me the most was having to blow it up and deflate it every day, and also have it in my bag. So I got rid of that pretty soon, and I really this is all I've needed. So just something for you guys to think about out there. you know, you will get a comfortable sleep out of the air mattress, but it does become annoying pumping it up and putting it down every morning. And to be honest, they probably weigh about the same, so that's what I've gone for there. And next in there, I'm using the MSR Hubba tent. I really love this tent. It's got plenty of room for me, my bag in it. The vestibule on it is enough room that I can store 2 panniers and even cook under it in the extreme weather that I've had here in Russia. If there's 2 of you, go for the Hubba Hubba. I think that's got twin vestibules if I remember. But to be honest, this is a great tent. It's light as hell, and I've really enjoyed. I've really enjoyed my sleeps in it. I've been into some horrendous weather here in Russia, and this hasn't failed me once. So really good piece of equipment, and probably one of the areas that I spent a bit of extra money on was buying a good lightweight tent, so I recommend that to anybody. And that's all packed into that pannier. So next I'll go for the rear pannier. Now this is my right rear pannier. This is a bag that I use mainly to keep my food in. And I've gone for basic simple things like in here I've got a lot of these little duffel bags. I like to keep everything quite organised. But in here I have the usual sharp knife. I got this great little mini spatula. It seems silly to take, but it's great for when you're doing scrambled eggs and that in the morning. And I have obviously a knife and fork and spoon set that just clip together. That's just a basic Cedar Summit one. And this guy I think I got from biggrassfields.uk, and they do a heap of gear, which is really cheap and that sort of stuff. Next in there I've got the, I'm using the Primus Omnilight Titanium cooker. Now this is a great little cooker. It really works really fast. It'll use just about any fuel. I mainly around Europe used canister gas because it was easily available, but here in Russia I've started using the white petrol, and on both cases it works extremely well. This thing will just about burn anything, so you're really not going to get stuck for fuel choices. And the reason why I went with Primus is I've used them in the past in other cookers that I've had, and they're a great piece of reliable gear. One of the downsides I'd say with this, they are expensive. There's cheaper models out there. And I know a lot of people like the MSR, Whisperlight and things like that. But what put me off the MSR was the pump system has a lot of plastic parts, whereas the Primus is mainly made up of really good quality metal components and that. Another downside to the Primus over the MSR is your maintenance kits are expensive. I brought both the pump maintenance kit with me and the cooker maintenance kit, and I think they were about £20 each. So it does add a cost to the cooker when you consider these cookers are, I think, are around about £140 to £150. So, but I'm glad I took this. It's really well worth spending that kind of money on that. Next now, I am taking a little chili bag. This is where I store most of my cool items that I might take. I normally have salami, some fresh fruit and stuff like that, and I normally keep it in there because the panniers do get hot if the sun's on them, and also it just helps me keep my food and stuff organised. So again, not a piece of equipment that many people would probably take bicycle packing, but I like it. Next, I have many of these little mesh sacks for putting things in. This one, for my food bag in particular, I put all my dry goods in. So I store everything in Ziploc bags, as many people do as well. But I just put them all into this bag and slide this into my pannier, which means when I stop, I don't actually always have to take the pannier necessarily off the bike. I just rip this sack out and everything's in it. And I just find that really handy and organised. So I like that setup. For a cup, obviously, everybody needs one of those. I also, as well as the cup, I also got a thermos flask. Again, that's one of the pieces of equipment that I use every day. I love it for my tea stops in the afternoon. And I got a little cook set, and I went with one of these little ones. This is actually out of the, if I say it right, the Pannier cooker set. It's one of their smallest ones that they do. and I like it because I can fit everything inside. It's got a little frying pan with it, but it's basically a nice tidy little setup, and it's more for me, just being me, there's more than enough room to cook anything that I need in that, and it's small enough to pack away. And that's pretty much my food pannier. Last but not least, I brought a cutting board, just a thin little plastic one. I got sick and tired of getting to campsites and trying to look around for a piece of wood or something to cut against, and in the end resorted to actually getting a cutting board. Stupid as it seems, incredibly handy. If I go to my left pannier, rear pannier, this is where I store all my clothing. Now, so I'll start off with the basics. I've got this little toiletry organiser. I really like this thing. I've actually had this for a few years. This is from Kathmandu, and I like it just because you can hang it on things if you're at a campsite, or even it just helps keep everything organised. Again, you can go for your Ziploc bags or anything like that if you want to cut down on weight rather than carrying around an organiser like this. But for me, this works for me. It keeps everything very organised and tidy and together. Also, I have many of these little dry bags, and this is how I organise my clothing in that. I got these from Big Grass Fields. I think they're by Cog Organs or something like that, and they were next to nothing. They're about £2 a pop. It gives me that extra peace of mind that if for some reason my pannier fails, which it hasn't ever, but if it did fail in water protection, that actually my clothes are going to stay dry. The other thing I just like about them, I write on all of them so that I can quickly pick them up and know what's inside. And it's just a nice way of keeping things organised. So just keep everything separate. So I've got one for like my smalls, my socks, my underwear. I've got another one which I keep my shorts, my t-shirts and that into. So that's just a nice way of keeping things organised. I've got another one of those mesh sacks. I put all my dirty washing in here. So this is another great thing about having these dry bags, is that your dirty washing doesn't stink out your clean washing. And so chuck everything in there. This also can act as a nice laundry bag if you need to go down to the laundromat or anything like that. I can chuck it all in there and carry it around with me. So that's why I've got that. And I've got a few more in there. Again, this is my electrical things like charger, battery packs. I've got a harmonica in there for personal reasons, and a compass and things like that. And I just keep that in another dry bag as well, in with my clothing. And in the bottom of here, I got one more. This again is carrying my thermals, hats and gloves, and an extra jumper. Again, many people say, why carry an extra jumper if you're carrying so many already? I've been caught out here in Russia a couple of times where the weather's turned bad, and I've actually had two jumpers on, got to the end of the day, they're both soaking wet, and this has actually been a real godsend having an extra jumper and extra thermals and stuff with me. But again, if I was going through Europe or something like that, I would not be carrying as much gear as I am here. This is just pure and simply because I am going through Siberia and across Mongolia and that, and just need to carry the extra gear. So this is where it becomes a bit subjective to what type of trip you're doing as to what sort of gear you're going to take with you. But I think on the most part what I'm carrying works, and could work for just about any trip. So if I go to the front panniers now, this is my left front, and in here I got basically the two front panniers. I got a piece of advice when I first started, was to try and keep your front panniers full of stuff that you're not going to remove that often, so that you keep the weight even all the time. Your rear panniers tend to change because obviously you eat food and you move around, and I really like that piece of advice. So it's not often that I'm anything I'm taking out of these two front panniers, I'm putting back in. However, I do keep this particular one full of my wet gear. So in here, another one of these mesh sacks, again just about trying to keep everything in one place and organised, and so I can get to it quickly. This has got my waterproof pants in it and a proper decent waterproof top. These are both North Face jacket and pants. you can probably buy cheaper ones if you wish. I really like the North Face gear. The waterproof pants I've got in here, I actually brought these when I was out in Kathmandu over 6 years ago. I've used them every winter in England since then, and they're still going absolutely fine. All I do is once a year is re-waterproof the outside of them with a waterproofing spray and that. So again, this is probably somewhere where you might consider spending a little bit of extra money on, is actually taking a decent waterproof jacket and decent waterproof pants, or you might not take waterproof pants at all. It depends on what trip you're doing. I have used both of these items more than a few times in Russia where the weather's unpredictable. I'm also carrying a little packet jacket, and I use this really regularly because this is not only just if it's raining, but it also acts as a nice windbreaker, and I sometimes even just keep this in my backpack just as, so I can get to it quickly. I have a decent bicycle chain in here, and that's because I have a D-lock on my bike, but in some cases it doesn't work. Sometimes when you need to mount to a pole or something that's just too wide, or a tree or something, you're going to need something like this. Also, I can put this through my wheels and that. Again, not everybody opts to take huge chains and stuff with them, but my bike, as far as I'm concerned, is the entire trip, so I want to make sure that I look after it and lock it up, and I lock my bike every night. But that's just there. I don't necessarily use that piece all that often, but it's there. As well as my gas cooker, I'm actually carrying a canister gas. That's because when the weather turns bad and I've had to cook in my vestibule sometimes, I prefer to cook using the gas canister. It's just a little bit safer than igniting petrol inside your tent. So that's the reason why I've got one of those. Extra weight, but it's okay for me. It works. It's a setup, and also it's just a bit of an emergency fuel if I do happen to run out. I have quite an extensive, what I feel is extensive first aid kit. In here there's things like ibuprofen gel, ibuprofen, Panadol. I've got surgical gloves, which come in handy not only for medical needs but also for if you're doing bike repairs and stuff like that. I have a lot of bandages and stuff like that. Again, you might not take so much stuff. Ironically, here in Russia, what I've found is that just about every truck stop also has a pharmacy. So you're never far from a hospital or the ability to get these kind of products. But I didn't know at the time, and I had packed a kit for me, and it's got pretty much everything that I can think that I would need in there in an emergency. I'm carrying a spare tyre. This is a Continental Travel Contact. This is the puncture protection folding tyre, and I thought it was just best to have an extra tyre with me because I'm going into some remote places where I might not be able to get decent tyres. And although I haven't had a problem with the Schwalbe tyres that I'm using, the Marathon Plus, it's peace of mind knowing that I do have an extra tyre with me. And one piece of equipment I got here, which I actually haven't used yet, but I took with me just as a precautionary thing, is a bivy bag. Now, the reason why I have still persevered with carrying this around with me, it was a bit of a trial and error. I didn't know how the tent would work out, whether I prefer to use the tent or maybe I would use this. In Russia, I would get eaten alive by the mosquitoes if I wasn't in my tent, so I haven't used the bivy bag at all through here. But I have got it. I always feel like if I got really cold for some reason at night, particularly as I'm going to go and cross Mongolian plains and that I could crawl into my bivy bag as well as an extra layer of protection if I needed to, or if the weather was so bad that maybe the tent failed, which it hasn't so far, but I've kept that in there as well. It doesn't weigh that much. It's another thing that I'm carrying around more as just peace of mind than anything. But I would say it's probably also one of the items that, should I be able to perhaps when I get down into the southern part of China, I'll probably post home or even just leave behind somewhere or with somebody as if I'm continuing not to use it. And then I move on to my my other from Pannier, and this is kind of my tool bag and my working bag. I have my flip-flops in there. I've opted this time, I mean, I'm used to wear traditional flip-flops, but this time I actually went for more of a sandal, a reef type sandal, and the reason I did that was I figured I'd be able to ride in these much easier. So these have actually got a hard bottom sole, just like a pair of shoes, with the straps and that, and I can ride my bike in them quite easily and quite nicely, which I might not be able to do with flip-flops. So again, you choose what you prefer. Obviously, toilet paper. There's a bear shit in the woods. I can say yes, he does. And I keep this obviously in a dry bag. Very useful tip. If you're putting it on the grass, it doesn't get wet. And to go with the toilet paper, I'm carrying around again one of these Cogons plastic shovels. It's very light and very useful. If you're doing stuff in the woods, bury it, yeah? No one needs to be stepping in that. I've got mosquito repellent. Oh, I go through loads of this stuff. They love me. I'm carrying a extra ground sheet. It's important to remember with the MSC Hubba tent, you can actually buy a ground sheet as an extra item that goes with it, which I have, and I recommend to anybody to do that. Buy the ground sheet, the extra ground sheet, and I actually attach that to the tent and I don't remove it. But I have got this extra tarpaulin, and I use this generally speaking when I've been in forestry, so particularly pine woods where there's pine cones and that, where I just want a little bit of extra protection on the ground. Alternatively, this also can be used to cover my bike for any reason, and it could actually be used as another layer of water protection over the top of the tent if I was in really, really stormy conditions. So this has come in handy more than a few times, particularly coming through the northern part of Europe where I was camping a lot in pine forests and stuff that had sharp objects. And then we move into the tools. I'm carrying quite an extensive array of tools, but it does pack into a nice little bit of a kit. Now, to go through all the tools, I'm also going to go back to my other pannier. I have got several items I'm carrying in here. I have, just bear with me, chain lube. Very, very important. You'll need this. I normally have to relube the chain probably every sort of 200 to 300 kilometers. So I go through a bit of that. I brought a decent full-size screwdriver. The little multi-tools are great, but when you actually need to get to some parts of the bike, you'll want an actual decent screwdriver. I have found that particularly useful, particularly when moving the little pins from the Shimano brake pad. I do have one of these Top Heat multi-tools with the chain splitter and everything in it. Great little thing to carry with you. On top of that, I'm also carrying another great thing, which is the, if you like, another multi-tool, which has a pair of pliers on it and everything else, and a knife and stuff. And that also is a useful piece of tool, but probably an optional extra. You don't need to be carrying around two multi-tools with you. You want some gaffer tape. Again, that's very useful. And I'm also carrying black electrical tape, and I'll probably use that more than the gaffer tape. Cable ties. Great for putting on, securing things in an emergency, and you'll be amazed where these actually come in useful. I took a bunch with me and I've used quite a few times. Tyre removers. I'm carrying around a spanner. Obviously, I've got the ones on the Top Heat, but this one's the adjustable spanner, and just means that I can cover up to bigger sizes of the bolts. I'm carrying around 2 spare inner tubes. With the Schwalbe Marathon Pluses, I haven't had one puncture yet at all, so it's questionable whether it was necessary to carry around 2 tubes. But again, this is probably one of those things that's more peace of mind than anything else. I'm carrying around 2 chains. Again, is it necessary? I'm not sure, but I do change my chains regularly. I probably try to change a chain at least every 1,000 if they're available. At the end of the day, these chains that I'm using, these KMC Z8s, in the UK these cost me about £4 each. When you weigh up what the whole drivetrain costs, this is the least expensive piece of it. So I can afford to change one every 1,000 kilometres if I've got the availability. I got 2 of them with me. I also get Wiggle just to send them out to me here in Russia as well. I've got other little parts in there, like some spare cables in case something breaks, and I've got an array of nuts and bolts and things like that. Again, a little mesh sack to cover stuff. Another thing that I've got in here that's really important is I have the rear cassette lock ring remover, because I can probably get a wrench off of any mechanic anywhere, but actually having that that rear cassette lock ring remover tool is going to be quite essential if you for any reason you need to take your rear cassette off and service it. So I recommend you get one of those if you are thinking about doing that. As well as that rear cassette remover, I also come to the realization that should a spoke snap on that drive side, you actually need to remove the cassette, in which case I actually am also in one of my other bags carrying around the tool for, if I remember rightly, it's in here, yeah, the actual chain tool, which you'll need to lock up the freewheel or the free hub. Otherwise you won't be able to get it off, it'll just spin. So again, that's one of those sort of tools. If I just get it out of here, I would say you're going to use, there it is there. I mean, to be honest, I haven't used that yet, and you're probably going to use this maybe never, but without it, you're going to find removing that cassette a really difficult job. So you might want to consider taking one of those with you. There are a couple of YouTube videos about how to do it without that, but for me it was peace of mind having it. And that's pretty much all the equipment I'm carrying. Extras that I started off with that I don't have now. I did have a meth burning stove with me. I got rid of that a month in. I wasn't using it. I didn't know which one I would use more, what the availability of fuels were like. As I say, I got rid of my airbed pretty quickly, deciding that that was a waste of time and I wasn't using it. And I have played around with some of the gear, what I got rid of. So, you know, the extra pair of socks went, the extra t-shirt went, the extra, just little small pieces like that. A lot of plastic things that I had things stored in and that, they went and got replaced with the Ziploc bags. And I'm still refining it. You know, I'm only 3 months into my journey now, and at the moment I use every piece of equipment I've shown you, mostly, other than the ones that I have for peace of mind reasons, and it's the setup that's working really well for me. Again, purely subjective what I'm doing. So I hope maybe that you found some of that useful. Alright, thanks.